Imagine being told you only had a short time left to live, and then still being here 13 years later. Defying the odds, today's guest has faced life-threatening illness, walked alongside Silicon Valley giants in the early days of Facebook, and built a career inspiring others to rise in the face of impossible challenges. His story is proof that resilience isn't just survival, it's reinvention. Tom Lenoble is the CEO of the Academy for Coaching Excellence and the host of the Opening Pathways podcast. Early in his career, he interviewed Mark Zuckerberg when Facebook was barely out of its dorm room beginnings. Later, he faced the fight of his life, living with me- metastatic, is that the correct pronunciation? Cancer for more than 13 years. After being told it was terminal, through it all, Tom has embodied resilience, risk taking, and commitment to service. His mission now is simple but profound to show people that no matter what challenge you face, you can still reinvent yourself, still live for purpose, and still make an impact. Tom, welcome to Attention is the Currency. So great to have you on the show today.
Daniel, it's great to be with you. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Well, we're really excited to dive into your story because so much vast experience. Yeah, so many things has happened. It's yeah. Would normally tell somebody like yourself to write a book, and we know you already have.
I indeed have. It's coming out soon.
So, Tom, before the health challenges, you were right there in the early days of Silicon Valley, even interviewing Zuckerberg when he was 19. What was that like?
Well, it was a great experience. I had a corporate life before this. I like to say I retired being retired to be inspired. I led customer service for a company called MCI that broke up all the Bell companies for long distance here. I was the head of customer service for Walmart.com. I ran global service operations for Palm, the Palm Pilot Trio people that's now part of HP. And I was sitting at my desk one day and I got a phone call from a recruiter who said they were from Facebook. And I had no idea what Facebook was at the time because it was still in colleges. And so I thanked them and hung up. And a buddy of mine called and said, I referred you to Facebook and you didn't talk to them. So I re-engaged and I interviewed with Mark Zuckerberg at 17, which is a great story about that interview, believe me. But I ultimately went to work for Facebook. And the interesting thing was everyone there was young enough to be my child. They were all deferring law school and business school to work their dream job. And I came along as old enough to be their father and set up their customer operations, some other things in the company, and was there for explosive growth in the early days. Went on to be the chief support officer of a company that's now the backbone of the Geek Squad remote support. Had a consulting business, did a bunch of work for boards and going into startups to fix their perceived issue and there. And then I fell in love, got married, and traveled the world. And after that, I knew I had something to share. I knew I had more to give and lots more to learn. So today you said it, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, got a book coming out. I'm the CEO of the Coaching Academy, have opening pathways. And, Daniel, through it all, everything I just shared with you, I've had two life-threatening illnesses. One I was told was terminal, and you're correct, metastatic cancer for the last 13 years. I've had enough radiation that I glow in the dark. I can be your nightlight.
Yeah,
And I'm still here.
they see you from space.
That's it.
It's yeah, it's such an amazing story, and well, yeah. So because we were diving deep into your history, and what do you learn from those early tech visionaries about risk and reinvention?
Risk is a great thing and resilience. I look at them, they're sort of like a muscle, just like you exercise your bicep or tricep to make it look good. You can exercise the use of risk and resilience, and then you become better and better at it and how you use it. Risk is, we often are told what we should or could do, not maybe what we always think we should do or following our dream. And I love to work with people in following their dreams, not just to go after them, but to take action to get to them. And that involves some risk and some mistakes and some failure. And out of taking risk and having failure and mistakes, it can be your biggest lesson. And then you use resilience, not just to get back up, but learn what you can do to grow from that experience to reinvent yourself. And through all my experience, I've learned a lot of that, but much of it has come from life-threatening illnesses,
Yes.
6 months to live three times, and navigating that terrain of how do you just keep going and decide that you're going to keep doing more rather than sit back and allow that to be what defines you.
Well, that brings me to my next question because with three times because with all that knowledge because when something happens because I know I've done a lot of personal development myself, but it does go out the window a bit when something comes up. But when you were told you had cancer or during those times, what went through your mind?
Well, you know, at first you realize that your calendar is going to clear itself, and there's a lot of unknown that could turn into fear. And I think having the first life-threatening illness, I had something under my belt. And, there were times I chuckled when they told me, which if you want to get a lot of doctors uncomfortable, laugh when they tell you you've got 6 months to live.
Yeah.
But I looked at it from the standpoint and have done it many times of even being told there's nothing we can do as, I don't know, maybe it's part of my personality. I kind of get this thing of, well, watch this. And I focus in how to move forward, how I can do the best with what I've got. And, there are no do-overs in life. And a lot of people spend time in what happened and trying to repair or recreate something as opposed to being here in the present. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons from this is being right here, right now.
That's powerful. And yeah, what do you credit, well, it's the survival to in this resilience?
I've been asked that a few times, and I've been fortunate that I had great medical care, I had insurance, I had all those things. But there's one thing that was the constant. I believed I could be here.
Yeah, that's also powerful. It's just many people think resilience just means pushing through. How do you define it now after living through that journey?
Resilience is often looked at as you fall down, get back up, and keep going. I think it's much more than that. I think there's something about the fall down or however we want to describe it that's about what you learn. I hear people sometimes say their life is kind of moving along like this. Well, they're either flatlined and dead or they aren't living. To me, life is a sequence of up and downs, and those what we perceive as downs are opportunities to learn and grow. The ups are an opportunity to express and utilize what we learned and how we grew, as well as knowing if life is life, there will be another turn down. I love the quote by Maya Angelou, and I live by it. Every storm runs out of rain. The sun's still shining behind the cloud, behind the storm. And knowing that that will pass, knowing there's some hope around the corner, knowing that you've got something that you can look forward to and do, to me is what resilience is about. And it often sparks the ability to reinvent yourself.
And what daily practices or mind shifts have you made the biggest difference in your ability to keep going and keep that mindset?
That's a great question, Daniel. I get up every morning at 3:30. I'm fortunate that I wake up, now I'm worthless at 8:30 at night, but I get up at 3:30 and I have my own practice that I do, whether it's, reading, some spiritual work. I have a vibrant athletic Pilates practice that I do with a trainer 5 days a week. I do lots of walks every day, usually 4 to 5 miles in nature every day. And I'm a big believer in gratitude. What is it that I'm grateful for that happened today? And I always remember when I wake up in the morning to be thankful for it because you and I woke up this morning. There are people who did not.
Yes, that's everything you say, Tom. It's yeah, it's I'm sure it's hitting home for anyone that's going to be listening to this podcast, and it's just yeah, such life experience and being so grounded in this. And you've spoken about risk, resilience, and reinvention as a trilogy. How do those connect?
Well, I think one leads to the next. If you think about it, you take a risk. And often, as I said, you have a failure or a mistake, and the risk may not work out. I think of startups. Of if you look at the statistics, quite frankly, very few make it. But the people who fail at the startup become very marketable, but they become sought after because they've been through it and they experience resilience. And the reinvention from the resilience to me is I got back up. What did I learn? And now how do I apply it? But I take it to the next level. It's something I call the philanthropic mindset. Many people, when I tell them I'm a philanthropist, say to me, when I have money, I want to be a philanthropist too. Well, I'll tell you a secret. If I did the calculation right now and I've never sold a share of Facebook stock, I'd be worth about $250 million today. But I sold it all and I don't regret it because the philanthropic mindset doesn't mean just having your name on a building or attending a gala. Your smile, a simple hello to somebody, is a philanthropic activity. So to me, it's taking risk, resilience, and reinvention and never forgetting the fourth part, which is how can I be of service to others?
100%. And well, I always I've seen it many times. Well, with the failures, that's 100% correct. You don't really want to work with somebody that hasn't tried and failed either. I remember a CEO saying, famous entrepreneur, I can't remember which one, but he goes, "Don't work with people that haven't failed because the project that you do with them is probably the one that they do on because it's only a matter of
Yes.
time." But it's yeah. But then it also with the money accentuates who you are. Uh,
Yeah, I look back and some of the failures that I've had or mistakes I've made have led to my biggest successes. I didn't realize it at the time. It didn't feel like it at the time, but using those to have resilience and get back up and grow from them turned out to be really positive in who I am today.
yeah. And for someone who's listening who feels stuck or defeated, what's the first step towards reinvention?
I think that first of all, I don't want to belittle that some people are very ill. Some people are laying in a hospital bed recovering, or they've had a defeat in their life. They've lost something very close to them or someone. These are real examples. However, I do want to reflect that after you take time to experience it, because I think that's important, but maybe not take forever, although we all do it on our own time, because living in that space is not going to move you forward. And I think the first step is to realize that this happened and there are no do-overs. It's the reality of what's going on. By all means, feel your feelings and know you will never be the same. But how do you use that in stepping forward? How do you turn that into taking a risk to get back in the game, to using resilience of I got back up, what did I learn from it? How can I utilize it as I move forward? What did it teach me? And reinvention of then putting it into action. As I said, life is life. It deals with some tough things. In fact, I think most everyone is going to have something in their life, or a few things if they're willing to admit it, that is going to be life changing. How do you use those? Maybe how do you use those for yourself? And how do you use those in service to other people?
That's perfect. Well,
So
yeah.
I offer that to them as a thought of, yes, it's real. Tough stuff is tough stuff. Tough love is tough love. But at some point, you've got your life in front of you. You get this one life, at least in this body. Let's keep moving forward when we're ready and take on the next challenge and take what we learned and put it into action.
I think it's definitely help. Well, no doubt you help your clients and all the pe people that you work with. It's with that because going through things, I think it's comforting to know that everyone goes through things. It really is, and I think that a lot of people forget that when they're at their lowest points, that they
Yes.
yeah, because everything. Well, with Facebook for the example, everyone looks like they're living the best life that they can, and I always try to be a little bit more real on that, but people still. I know that I think it was Les Brown that said, that nobody wants to hear about your problems. They're just glad that it's you and not them, essentially.
Yes.
And I think it's
And I hope that we're shifting some on that because we can learn from what each other's challenges were. I hope we're going to talk about my book a little bit because that's what my intention
yes,
is for the reader with the book
no,
is to see that these problems that we perceive in our life, these disparate parts of our life that we want to hide or we think somebody might not understand, could even be outrageous or even feel shame. Who you are today, who you are today is the sum of all what you've been, who you've been. And if you didn't have those experiences, you wouldn't be who you are today. And there's power in owning them, there's power in sharing them because other people are having them as well. And I think when we get to a point where we share a little bit more about ourselves instead of hiding in the shadows, we become again service to others.
no, I definitely agree. And I always try to share a little bit more about myself now. And I will be pushing to do even more. And you do have your book coming out,
I
and
do.
I think always the thing that I love to ask authors is how probably the first question around there is how you want people to use the book, whether it's something they want to that you want to see them have it folded up in their pocket if they're writing notes on it, or whether it's a one time read and then hand out to all their friends, or well, nothing's ever a one time read to really absorb the information, but something that they lend or a manual.
Yes. Yeah, my book is My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels. It takes my career and some really difficult times in hospital gowns, those flimsy piece of fabric that we can rarely tie in the back.
Yes.
And you'll have to read the book to find out about the high heels. But it's taking these things and they're, again, pulling them together and showing that who we have been in our life is who we are today. And each chapter gives the reader something to focus on and look at of how they might apply it in their life. And readers, your viewers can go to my website and actually get a free chapter by just signing up for it, a sneak peek. They get the prologue, which sets the stage for the whole book.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, we will be putting the address in there, but is it a carry around manual that you're going to buy 100 of them to hand out to friends?
I'm hoping that friends will buy it, and it's
Yes.
going to come out an ebook, an audio book, and the book all at once. And so I think that people will want to share it, I hope, and be inspired by it. That's my goal.
Yeah, many levels of yeah of well, you're going to be able to absorb it. However you absorb the information, the book is available. And
Yes.
how do you what I want to go back to your coaching a little bit more again, and how do you coach others to find resilience through their own challenges, feeling overwhelming?
Yes, I took coaching originally in the late 90s. I'm actually the CEO of the company that is the curriculum that I took. Of course, back then there was no coaching federations, there was no coaching academies, and I've been able to use it throughout my life. And we couldn't call it coaching because they thought you were, coaching softball or volleyball or something. But it's been very effective in my life. And it's based on something that some people go, okay, what are you talking about now? But it's based on an ontological model and the study of ontology. And many people don't know what it is. Just like we have psychology, that's the study of our thoughts, our dreams, our mind, cosmology. There's ontology. And ontology is the study of being. So my work focuses on how you're being and how that relates to you reaching your goals and dreams and what you came here to do. I'm not interested in what happened at 5 or your last relationship. I'm interested in how you're being and how that relates to you getting what you're out to get out of this lifetime. So that's what my coaching is based on. So I'll give you an example.
Yes.
We talked a bit about people living in the past a little bit. Some of my clients, for example, have been laid off from their job. And what I find many people is they have one foot in the future, trying to find something new, but they've still got one foot in the past in the whole realm of what happened. And it takes on everything from I need to sue to They did me wrong or whatever it is. Well, I don't know about you, but if you go outside and you put one foot in the past, one foot in the future, and you keep them there, you're not going to get very far if you're trying to move forward. So I try and help them move it forward. I have something in my practice I call the haystack method. You know how people say it's like finding a needle in a haystack? Well, I happen to
Yes.
think the needle is your answers. I believe people have their own answers. So for me, my job is to simply hold the space to remove your hay so you can find your needle.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, I've definitely because I tend to be one of those people. Though I'm pushing for my future, injustices occur, and I go, that's so wrong, and it shouldn't be like that. And I sort of burn myself out a little bit pushing on that at the same time as I guess it is like that. It's a tug of war between the two. But well, yeah, as you've said, that problems happen, and I guess you've got to release them if you want to go in this direction.
Well, I think without doing that, you might be missing something that's happening right now. So there are no do-overs. You don't get to do it over. Reality is what happened. If you can learn from it, take the time to do that. But otherwise, I love your attention as your currency. Let's get your attention into where the currency is, which is in today. You know, we all have to look at the future. Let's face it, we have to keep the lights on, the refrigerator full, gas in the car, whatever it is that we need to do. And yes, there's some things to focus on. But a lot of things are happening right now in this present moment. And let's don't miss this present time because, as I said, we woke up this morning. Some people didn't.
Yeah, but no, definitely. Well, I always, yeah, I always find when things go wrong because I mentioned that my dog and I were attacked a couple of weeks ago, and I found that it has grounded me a bit in appreciation of things, and I hug my dog a bit tighter. I play with him a bit more, and I just sort of enjoy the mornings a little bit more than rushing. So it's such a such a
So
true message.
I'll share with you what that means to me, Daniel. I call that the terrible gifts of life. What happened to you and your dog, Wilfred, I think is his name?
Yes,
What
Wilfred.
happened to you and your dog is terrible. None of us want these occurrences. But if you think about what you just said, you're more grounded, you're more appreciative. There are things that happened out of it. That's the gift. So they're terrible gifts. We get terrible gifts in our lifetime. Things happen that we would never want to happen to even our worst enemy that happen to us. And sometimes later, sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 10 years. We realize that something happened and we learned something from it. We grew from it, or we're behaving differently as a result of it. We have a different appreciation for something. To me, those are the terrible gifts of life.
Yeah, that's. I'm going to write that down because I think that's a beautiful metaphor for. And your book's coming out, and is anything else we should be excited about as well coming through?
Well, that's pretty exciting. And boy, I'm
It
going to
is.
tell
It's
you, if
really
anybody's
exciting.
read the
Yeah.
book, they understand when you get to this point of it, it takes a while. I wrote this book about, I don't know, 16 years ago, and it was so cathartic to write it. I put it up on a shelf. And then about 2 years ago, I decided to either trash it or run with it. And I decided to run with it. And here we are. And
Yeah.
it's going to be out in just a few weeks, which is really exciting. There's also a lot of activity around that. And I'm already on, like I'm here with you today. I'm with some other people talking about it, and there's lots of opportunities coming. And we'll see what happens. There's a lot of things. I have a
Yeah.
lot of dreams, and I like to consider myself a manifester. So I usually can create things to happen. And so I'm focused on a number of things that are coming in the future.
Well, you're definitely unstoppable, I'd say. And it's just
Thank you.
we're excited to see things all come through for you, Tom. It's been, and we're moving to our signature close question now for the interview. And if attention is the currency, what should people stop wasting it on, and what should they start investing it in?
Well, I've said it, and I'm going to repeat it again for your viewers. Put your attention on the present. That's where the currency is. That's where the richness of life is. If you're living in the past, if you're living in what happened, if you're living in what could have been, should have been, try your best to realize there are no do-overs. Bring your attention to where the currency is, which is in the present. Come here now, be here now, and experience what's happening in your life today. And I believe you'll find that things work out much better for you, and you might even feel a little better.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Tom, and that will be in our clips. And Tom Lenoble has lived what most of us can only imagine, and his story is a reminder that resilience isn't about avoiding hardship; it's about transforming it. You can learn more about Tom, his podcast, Opening Pathways, and his work with the Academy for Coaching Excellence at www.tomlenoble.com. We'll put the link in the description. If this episode inspired you, share it because resilience, risk, and reinvention are currencies we can all invest in. Thanks again, Tom. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Daniel, I enjoyed being with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Very welcome. And we'll see if we can get you on another show later down the track.
Thank you.
Thank you.